So back to my 210 headlight switch of all things that was not providing power to my reversing lights. I've never seen construction like this with a flexible PCB, but in any case it's actually pretty easy to work on. Right, so I've disassembled the 210 headlight switch or lighting control module, and I've also removed the side cover where the fuses are. Just be aware that you need to take that front knob off first, and that is a real bitch to remove. It's got like the world's toughest clips holding that on. I actually used tiny screwdrivers just to flex that out so it didn't explode. Anyway, it looks like this fuse section, in order to access the bottom of that where I can inspect the solder joints, I need to desolder all of these connections here on this flexible PCB because it wraps around there, and that should allow me to gain access to it. And it looks like it's actually heat staked in position as well, so I'm going to need to melt those. This is not looking like a DIY job more and more, but screw it, I got nothing to lose. Let's see what I can do. Just looking at this flexible PCB under the microscope, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing anyway. There's a number of cracked solder joints just on that board. Now I have checked, none of those are in relation to those backup lamps, so I'm going to need to investigate further underneath that fuse section. I'll just show you what I have seen so far. So even if this thing was working, it wasn't going to be working for long. You can see this joint here is completely cracked, and this is able to move freely, and the others aren't far behind it, so really it needs a blanket resolder on these high current terminals at the very least. Hopefully I can get it back together without destroying it, and it's going to get a nice fresh solder job anyway when it goes back together, assuming I don't destroy it. So next step, remove all of this old crap solder and flex that board upwards. And yes, I will have to remove those heat stacked plastic posts as well. So it's going to stink of melted plastic for a while. So yes, these things are repairable. After desoldering all of these terminals on the actual headlight switch, I was able to flex this flexible PCB back to gain access to the rear side, and what do you know, there's crack soldering joints on the fuse terminals. Big surprise. I would not go trying to flex this too much, because if this flexible PCB cracks, well, this thing goes in the trash. I have access now to actually resolder all of those terminals, and that's what I'm going to do with lots of flux and then clean it off. But before I start, I will show you what the deal was with that fuse number 12. So fuse number 12 is actually on the right hand side here, and both of its solder joints have nice big rings around them where they're completely cracked free. And it's not just that one, it's the one next to it. So basically every single fuse holder needs to be resoldered. This thin, crappy, flexible board obviously builds up quite a bit of heat in it. To make this last forever, I'd probably use high temperature lead-free solder, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to use the same old lead-based solder that was in here. And yeah, I'll get all of this done, and then I'll show you what it looks like after a complete solder job. So that is the fuse box section of the light switch completely resoldered, and yeah, I use a lot of flux because I just like doing that. Gives a nice shiny solder joint. I'm going to clean all of that off, but before I reattach it to the switch section, I'm going to see if I can access the rear of these terminals, because if that was full of crap solder joints, the top was full of crap solder joints, this is going to be full of crap solder joints too, I'm sure. Hopefully I can get in there. It looks like that clips off. We'll go ahead and try that now. So yes, you can actually access the back side of the terminals, and I've looked at every one of those joints under the microscope and I can't see anything wrong with them, so that's astonishing. Why are the joints all crap around this section, and on the terminals they were all fine? Is it because of vibrations? Like the fuse box getting banged around every time you slam the driver's door? And the switch, maybe from rotating the switch around, it breaks those solder joints loose. And these terminals, well, they're fitted at the factory and they're generally never touched again, unless you need to change the switch. Maybe that's why. I'm tempted just to resolder that anyway. Because why the hell not? I've already got it open, so it would be kind of dumb if I didn't, and then it turned out to be a problem later. So maybe I will just do that. But maybe if you're not feeling confident to go this far, you're probably okay on my sample size of 1 unit. I have not looked at any others, so take that with take that as it is. Up to you. So I did end up resoldering every single joint in there. Yeah, it's actually not that hard. Now that I know how to open these things, yeah, it's not that hard to service. I'm going to go ahead and put it back together, and just for amusement, I'm going to check those two 22 microfarad electrolytic capacitors and see if they're any good. These two capacitors on that headlight switch are not possible to actually test in circuit because there is a load that the tester is seeing. I'm not suspicious of them. The thing was working other than intermittent operation of the reversing lights, and that was clearly the cracked solder joints on the fuse box area. Plus, I've blanket resoldered every through-hole device on this thing anyway. And these caps are not hard to access, so if I end up having some kind of CAN bus error to do with the headlight or lighting operation, most likely it will be these caps that have just dried out and the CAN bus side of things isn't working, because this thing is pretty freaking straightforward. There's not much to it other than the CAN bus stuff. Presumably that's what that is. The rest of it's all straight through. Just a fuse box integrated into a headlight switch with a little bit of CAN bus going on. Yeah, and the issue was cracked solder joints. So let's put this thing back together now and give it a test. So that's one completely and utterly resoldered headlight switch for the 210. Presumably this also fits on other cars of the era, and other cars of the era probably have a similar design if it's not the same unit. So really, I'm gonna say this isn't that hard. Obviously, if you've got some CAN bus issues with the switch, well, it's going to be in this area here, which is fully accessible. And the first thing I'd be checking is these capacitors, and there's very clearly a fuse there as well. That green thing, I suspect, is a fuse. It's all pretty straightforward. Yeah, so let's pop the housing back on and fit it back to the car, see what happens. And astonishingly, like, why is there an incandescent bulb there when SMD LEDs already existed back then? Like, why? What the hell is the point of that? Were LEDs just not bright enough in 1998, maybe? Okay, 1x completely resoldered headlight switch installed now. Let's test this, see how it works now. I can't actually reverse far back because I'm still connected to the charger. But anyway, we'll know if it's working as soon as I put it in the reverse position. Hopefully we no longer see bulb out warning. So let's go ahead and try that. Well, well, well. So that's one more thing crossed off the list. I now have no errors whatsoever to do with lighting. parking brake is on. So this car can actually get registered now. Well, I need to put some decent tyres on there and decide what I'm doing with the headlights. I don't think this car's good enough for the second last set of new old stock headlights left on earth for right-hand drive. I might just polish up these ones and save those others just in case I happen to come across an E55 I have to have at some stage. But anyway, that's the end of the video for today. Another success story. A DIY repair on a 210.